So now I want to introduce our speaker, Dr. Ken Druck. As I mentioned, we met, I don't know, was it 19 years ago? Ken came to our conference and actually uh, presented to the families, but he also ran some of the support groups that we had with Oklahoma City families, where our families joined with their families, and they really gave us a sense of hope. But it was really under Ken's direction that we were able to think in terms of, how are we going to move forward for the rest of our lives after this horrible tragedy and the loss that we suffered. And so he gave us that hope along with Oklahoma City. Ken is a recipient of the prestigious Distinguished Contribution to Psychology Award for his pioneering work in healing after loss. Ken Druck has been a source of support and inspiration to millions and helped shape our worldview of what it means to live honorably, courageously, and with integrity after a loss. Ken led some of the town hall meetings and support groups in New York City after 9/11, and his Families Helping Families bereavement program has served as a model for countless families and communities over the past 20 years. Ken's work has helped individuals, couples, families, and communities transform their greatest challenges and tragedies into opportunities to become the better version of themselves. So I want to welcome you, Ken, from, and he's tuning in from California. As you can see in his background, it's still daylight there. So I want to welcome you and thank you so much, Ken, for joining us tonight. And I'll now turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mary. I have ever done since day one related to September 11th has happened because it's been an exchange. And that's my hope for today. Mary, you had mentioned about the model, the Families Helping Families model. And I want to start by telling you where that comes from. On March 27th, 1996, my oldest daughter, Jenna, was on a study abroad program traveling through India. She had called me the night before saying, "Dad, I can't believe it. Tomorrow, I'm going to be on my way to the Taj Mahal, the world's greatest symbol of eternal love. And I'm going to see the Taj Mahal. I can't believe it." It was part of her study abroad program. Well, that was the last time I would speak with my daughter, because that following day, she died on the Grand Trunk Road in a bus accident. And she and three other beautiful young women, 21-year-old women, died in that accident. And my world was turned inside out and upside down. A part of me died that day, and the rest of me realized that there were still parts of me alive and that somehow needed to find a path forward, a way to go on, a way to fight my way back into life. So whatever I share with you today or tonight comes from everything I have learned from my own survival, everything I have learned from working with countless thousands of families and parents and spouses, whether it's Sandy Hook Elementary School, whether it was 9/11, whether it was Columbine, or literally hundreds of other situations. After Jenna died, I started the Jenna Druck Foundation, and the program that we created was called Families Helping Families. And when Mary and I met, it was because we were both people who were walking with a limp in our hearts. We were both trying to find a way to convert the pain, the anguish, back into love, into an expression of love. And so what I share with you today, and I'm going to talk for a little while about something I call the 6 honorings, the choice that we make to honor them in the way we live on. And you're going to find yourself in those 6 honorings because most of you, if not all of you, are already doing what I'm going to be sharing with you. I'm going to remind you. I'm going to validate what you're already doing and perhaps give you a little refresher course, as I need to give myself every so often, about the path forward after 20 years. Now, my path forward came with a little asterisk. Yours came with a huge one because of the public nature. There have been very few events in the history of mankind that are as widely publicized. And for the next several weeks, you're going to be getting triggered, or you'll be invited into multiple triggers that invite you into re-traumatizing yourself. For me, most people have forgotten and moved on. If I'm re-traumatized, it's something usually on a much smaller scale. But that has to be factored into everything you're doing. So what's the good idea about doing this tonight? Mary and I were talking a couple of months ago, and we said, you know what? Here we are. Here we are. Grief occurs. Some of it occurs in a linear way inside of time, but some part of grief and loss occurs, and trauma occurs outside of time. Not everything is time bound. We can't look at our watch and tell somebody how we're doing because of the losses we have suffered or the trauma we suffered. It's not time bound. So here we are with an opportunity to take honest inventory in a judgment-free zone with people who have suffered comparable losses, and to share with one another how we're doing, what has happened, what have we found out that we can do and that we do that is helping us, especially with regard to the next few weeks. What is a program that we could write to take ourselves through the next several weeks with compassion, with self-compassion, with encouragement, with kindness, with patience, with good planning, with a lot of good do's, do this, and a lot of good don't do that. How can we put together a plan? So the goal of tonight is for all of us to leave this meeting with a much clearer and better sense of what it is that I'm going to be doing in the next several weeks to walk the path of self-compassion, of support, rather than to get on the path of re-traumatizing myself, of perhaps making decisions that are not really in my own best interest, in the way that I surround myself with. What people? Are they people that will feed off of me or feed me? Are there people that will support me? How much activity will I engage in? What's the best formula for each one of us? And there's no cookie cutter, of course. So it's your best plan for you, knowing what you know about you, about how you do your best and how you have become the best version of you, how you have walked that path of honor. So let me get into what the 6 honorings are. And we'll go through them quickly, and feel free to come back to them. And I also sent you a briefing, so I'm not going to get into them in grim detail. You can read about them later or tune into my website and you can hear me speaking about each one of them. But the first one is surviving their death, surviving what happened to you. It's our own survival. It's the professional grade self-care upgrade that we've been doing, learning how to take care of ourselves. In the very beginning, it was equivalent to being on life support. We felt like we were dying or had died as well. We were going moment to moment. It was as if we were in the ICU, and the line between our own life and death was very thin. And we were in survival mode, fluctuating from surreal, believing this couldn't really have just happened, to all too real, Like, oh my God, it did happen. It really happened. How am I going to possibly live out the rest of my life with this having happened? Because my plan for the future has been obliterated. My blueprint of living the life that I had hoped and having the person and the people and the peace that I had known has been obliterated. So our own survival, fighting our way back into life. And I often think about Groundhog Day. Remember that Bill Murray movie where he wakes up every morning and he has to go through, well, I think we all lived in Groundhog Day, didn't we? And we'd look down one path we would make our despair the central organizing principle of our life. Our trauma, our despair, our pain would become the defining principle of our life. And at the end of that path, when I would look down that path, I would see both of my daughters in pain and agony, my angel daughter and my earth daughter. And literally, my earth daughter, excuse my language, I would look down the end of that path and I would see her saying, Dad, you gave up. You gave up on me. You stopped being my father. And my other daughter saying, Dad, we should have just buried you with Jenna while we had the chance, because your despair became the central organizing principle of your life. But on the other path, I see both of my daughters proud of me and saying, Dad, your heart was broken into a million pieces and you slowly fought your way back into life. You lived out the rest of your days by giving them purpose and meaning and fighting through your despair and sorrow, even though you understood that the rest of your life would be a work in progress. You didn't use words like closure, waiting for a magical moment. You realized that your heartache would be with you for the rest of your life, but it would be a choice of whether your heart broke open or whether your heart broke closed, whether you contracted into the smaller version of you and contracted around your pain so as never to feel pain again, or whether you somehow found love again, you've somehow found life again, you somehow allowed yourself to go on with these 6 honorings. So the first honoring is survival. And it's adopting a plan of self-care. And that's what we're doing tonight, is reviving that plan for self-care. The second honoring has to do, and I'm going to read them in the order that I wrote them, with doing something good in their name. Can you think of many people? When I think of people who've done good things in the name of their loved one, I think of Mary Fetchett. I think of a variety of people. Whether you lit a candle and that was what you did, whether you celebrated them in some small and way that nobody else notices, but you hold them sacred, or whether you did something crazy like me and Mary by starting an organization and spending all these years developing, growing, nurturing it, transforming it into something that could support, love, and change people's lives and help them heal their hearts. But doing something good in their name is something I guarantee, if I could talk with each one of you, Michelle, Jeannie, Jill, Vincent, Teresa, Angelique, Scott, Nina, Joan, Matt, Teresa, Nancy, Deborah, Stephanie, Jennifer, my favorite name, Deborah, Leanne, Pandora, you would tell me something good you have done in their name. The third honoring is to cultivate a spiritual relationship with them. Now, I'm not saying a religious, I'm saying a spiritual relationship with them. All of us have discovered the love that never dies. Yes? Please nod if you agree with me. There is a love that never dies. It's non-negotiable. And when we feel pain, it's because that love is stirring. We miss them. We long for them. We suffer because the life they did not get to live out. But the spiritual relationship means for me, I tell my daughter I love her every day. Do I have some kind of a line into the spiritual realm of life? I don't know with 100% certainty what the true nature of life and death is, but I bet my faith. I tell her I love her anyhow, every day. And I listen for her love. I feel for her touch. I allow myself. The first time I ever came to Voices and gave a talk, I stood up in front of all of you and I said, yes, I talk to the dead. Let's get that out of the way. But I do so in a spiritual sense without knowing with 100% certainty. But I do so just in case my daughter has a way of feeling and knowing my love and feeling affirmed. I give that love. It would be painful not to. I tell her, Jenna, I love you with all my heart. As a matter of fact, my love has grown for you. And I allow myself to feel her love. Some mornings I'll get up and go to the closet to get dressed and I'll hear, Dad, you can't wear that shirt. That shirt, you need to throw that shirt out. So allowing ourselves to feel that love can come in so many different forms. And allowing the love that never dies is the third honoring. The fourth honoring is to embody some special aspect of their spirit, of their essence. You know, my daughter Jenna was such a lover of life. She embraced life, her enthusiasm. And I want to be more that way when I grow up. And as I grow up, I try to embody a quality. And if you could think right now of one quality, think about the celebration of life that you've had and the qualities that you most miss and that you cherish that your loved one possesses. Anybody that you have lost. And if you're a survivor, somebody that you have lost. And if you think of the quality they possessed, maybe it's their irreverence, their sense of humor, their kindness, their love of the arts, expressive arts, their ability to disinhibit themselves and sing. Whatever it is that you cherish, you embody more of it, embody that quality more so in yourself. The fifth honoring is perhaps the greatest of challenge of all. The fifth honoring is to write new chapters of your own life, which all of us have already done. In the beginning, do you remember? If I had something good to eat, I would sit there saying to myself, I am the most despicable father who ever lived. How dare I put on nice clothes, have a nice meal, think about my own life. Oh, let's go on a trip next year. How dare my life go on when her life ended? How dare I experience any joy again? And yet most of us have realized that the way they perhaps experience joy is in our allowing joy back into our hearts, allowing ourselves to see and feel beauty again, to listen to music again, and that it would give them joy, or it gives them joy to know that we have fought our way back into that part of life that is still a blessing. So writing new chapters means doing things and going on with things that are past their lifetime and allowing our lives to unfold. allowing ourselves to live out the rest of our days and to bring joy and to bring new memories and to bring generosity of heart and compassion and understanding into our days, into our relationships, into our world, which so desperately needs it. So writing new chapters is one of the great ways we honor them. And lastly, the sixth honoring is something that happened in one of the centers in Rockville Center, where I would commute every month. I would come from California to Rockville Center and help run the Rockville Center program and meet with the firefighting families at different locations. And what I realized was, with the average age of the person who died on September 11th being 38, there were living parents, there was a wife and children. They were in the middle. They were the sandwich generation of their day, many of them, and most of them. And what would happen in the rawness of our grief, in the rawness of what was going on? Some families were tearing apart. You'll never see your grandchildren again. Well, you'll never see a penny again of our support. There were horrible things going on, you remember. And in many of our own families, people were tearing apart. In the rawness of grief, this is what happens in many families at any particular time, but in particular in the rawness of grief. So what did we do? We adopted a program called Take the High Road. What does that mean? It means to treat one another with kindness, with patience, with an understanding that we're all grieving so differently. We all go through this differently. Some of us want an altar front and center, and others say, I can't. I was muted there for a second. So take the high road means to operate, instead of operating out of the rawness of our grief and our sorrow and our trauma the next several weeks, that we take a deep breath. We allow people are going to say the same way they said, excuse me, stupid shit in the beginning. We used to have a list at the Druck Center of the 10 stupidest things people said to me. And then we had a list of the 10 kindest, most helpful and compassionate things people said to me. Well, instead of biting somebody's nose off the next couple of weeks, to take a deep breath and to realize once again that we still live in a grief illiterate world, that our world depends on quick fixes. Our world is grief avoidant. There are still very few, less people in our world who know how to really be with us. The angels that showed up in all of our lives, who can listen, who don't give unsolicited advice because they know better. You know, I would always, I feel like biting somebody's nose off when somebody would ask me the parent question, well, do you have any other children? Because the message, what's the message that comes with that statement? It's like, oh my God, I have another one at home. I can't believe I've been sad all these years. I have another one. Thank you. Thank God I have people like you in my life to remind me that I have another one at home. So to understand that a lot of people, we used to have a saying, compassion is your pain in my heart. That many people don't have that wiring that allows compassion and empathy. They think that love is giving you advice, figuring you out and fixing you. And that's what they're going to do. They're waiting. They know what's coming up in a couple of weeks. They've got the fix. Come on over. We're having a big dinner. Right now, you can think of people who want to fix you the next couple of weeks. And it would be the absolute wrong thing for you to do. I don't want to be fixed, but walk with me, talk with me, listen to me. Let me tell you how it is for me, including giving you good news about things that I've discovered, how I'm ripening my own soul from this sorrow. Let me tell you the truth about how I don't know about you, if I'm walking behind a girl with my daughter's hair, I could be walking down the street in California and the girl walking in front of me has my daughter's hair and I've got tears. My life is going to be a work in progress. Do I live in a judgment-free world where I can tell everybody that? No. There are a few people I can say that to who won't try to put a spin on it. Oh, let's put a spin on, Ken, hasn't it been 25 years? And you may hear, hasn't it been 20 years? You may hear that, but take the high road. Take a deep breath. Don't engage. Go to where the light is. Go to where the understanding is. Surround yourself with people. Don't load up on September 11th. Don't load up. You know, the reason why Mary and I were thinking about in the end, we should have this meeting a couple of weeks before. Why? Because we're going to take some of the bite, some of the emotional charge. You don't wait until the anniversary, or what some of us call the angelversary. You don't wait until that day and store everything up. You plan something the day before, the week before, the day after, because your subconscious mind is orchestrating how you're going to take care of yourself. And you give it every opportunity to breathe, to take those steps forward. So what are some of those steps forward? Well, let's get into, and how are we doing on time? Mary, you're going to remind me. If we're on time, we're good on time. Do we have any comments or questions? Or are we ready to get into starting to talk about all the aspects of what is coming, what's coming and what we can do? And let me give you a couple of do's and don'ts to get, can I warm up the oven?
You
Is that
can.
okay? Let me warm up the oven with a couple of do's and don'ts. Do. Here are some things to do. Think back, and by the way, I'll send this to Mary. You don't have to copy all this down. I'll send this to you guys. Think back and remember, what has helped me every year? What did I do that really helped me? There are a few things I've done in the past that have really helped me when I go through an angelversary like this. I need to remember what they were, because you in your infinite wisdom have many of these answers, just waiting for revelation, waiting for discovery. Number 2, keep your hand on your heart and your foot off of your throat. What do I mean here? We are so damn good at self-criticism, self-condemnation, in evaluating ourselves. What are you going to do with that harsh, critical voice, that prosecutorial finger in our face? What are you going to do? What are you doing for the family? What are you doing for this? What are you doing to honor him or her? What are you not doing? But there's that accusatory voice. When we put our hand on our heart, it's the hand of self-compassion. It's the hand of patience and healing. It's the hand of encouragement and kindness. It's the hand of gentleness. It's the hand of clarity and understanding. It's not the hand when our foot is on our throat of condemnation, of judgment, of pressure, of criticism. So the second do is keep your hand on your heart. And would you do that with me? Would you join me just for a second, just to feel like to put a moment of self-compassion into yourself, into your body and soul, the kindness that you can show yourself. You have the ability to be so kind, and self-compassion is the secret sauce for healing. Self-compassion, not judgment. And thank you for trying that with me. So the third one is give your sorrow a voice. Do you think you're going to feel sad in the next couple of weeks? Have you felt sad thinking about tonight's meeting? Of course. How could sorrow be silenced? It forever stinks, or as the kids would say, it sucks. It forever stinks that we have lived this history. And does it get better? A lot of people ask me, do they ask you, is it getting better? And what do we tell them? It never gets better. It gets different. It gets different. So how do we allow ourselves, as it gets different, to give our sorrow, our long-term companion called sorrow, which is just simply a part of our emotional radar? It sends up signals saying, you're sad right now. You miss Jenna. You hate that life had to go on without her. You have every right to. So we give sorrow a voice. Sometimes we give objection a voice. How many of us have silenced ourselves? Shh, don't object. There's a plan, you just don't understand it, or some other reasoning that prevents you, that silences you from saying, I object. Get me customer service on the phone. Somebody get customer service, because this is wrong. And I want to complain. I want to file a complaint. Well, if we still have that in us to object, give it a voice. Because when we give voice to our sorrow, to our anger, to our objection about how the universe works, we create the path forward. We air out. Our heart breaks open and forward. That's why we do it. Next, cut back your schedule. Do not overschedule. Schedule meetings, lunches, coffees, therapy, coaching sessions with your good supporters and confidants, trusted friends in the weeks before 9/11, just like you're attending this tonight. Air out, vent your grievances, clarify and clear the path forward. Choose one simple act of honoring and remembering for the day of the 11th. It could be being at the conference, the symposium, could be your honoring. Give yourself plenty of time to breathe, relax, rest your mind, body, and sleep. Do meaningful things and schedule time with only the support people, the people who care and who give you energy, not who drain your energy. Those are just a few do's. Don'ts. We've already said, don't let self-criticism be the conversation you're having with yourself. Don't let guilt, shame, feelings of failure, inadequacy. I'm not a good griever. I'm terrible. I'm on the D list of people after 20 years. Don't have that conversation. Don't hide, deny, repress, or bottle up your feelings or isolate yourself. Don't squeeze everything into the day to honor and remember your loved ones. Don't flood your nervous system, your brain, your emotional heart with painful, horrific images or ruminate about the things you haven't figured out or made peace with. Don't set yourself up to be a hot mess on September 11th. And lastly, again, don't overschedule time with everybody. If you're a pleaser like me and you want to make everybody happy, how many of you are type E? Everything to everybody else. Well, if you're like me, you need to make sure that you have simplified the day. Do not try to be a pleaser. Don't try to make everybody happy or heal everybody's heart. Take care of yourself. And those are just some do's. We're going to now break out into groups where in our group, we're going to get to put together the beginnings of our master plan for how we're going to handle the next couple of weeks. Are we good to go on that? I'm so glad to see all of you again. So we have an opportunity to share the wealth of what happened in your group. And I'm going to need your help since I wasn't there. I was in my own group. The people in my group asked me, Ken, what's your greatest challenge in the next couple of weeks? And I said, not being able to be with all of you. That's my greatest challenge. Because here I am in California. I'm very far away from my 9/11 family. And there's so much that I need to store, things I need to remember and talk about. This morning, I woke up and I had a memory of something that happened in one of our support groups. And can I tell you quickly what happened as a warm up for you telling me what happened in your support group? So what happened in one of the support groups, we had probably 60, 70 people who would crowd into a little room on Merrick Road in Rockville Center to come to a support group a couple of days a week. Do you remember? Who remembers that? Deborah, you were there? And we would crowd into the room. And one night, and I would come in from California to lead the groups. And one night I came in, we had just had so many heavy nights, one after the next, after the next. And that night I walked in and I felt some kind of divine inspiration. I lit a candle in the middle of the room. And I said to everybody, tonight we're going to talk about our favorite cookie as a child. Don't ask me where I got that. And we spent an hour and a half that night. The only thing we talked about was our favorite cookie. And we had family members from all over the world. So we heard about cookies that we never knew existed. And it was one of the most special nights of my life. I got to talk about how I used to love to dip pecan sandies into milk. And other people talked about churros and how to eat an Oreo cookie, how to eat the cream out of the middle, and how to heat up chocolate chip cookies. But there's nobody I could tell that story to here. So I'm telling it to all of you. And that's my greatest challenge, is to stay in touch with all of you in the next couple of weeks. So as my tears swell up, I have you. As my laughter and cookie stories swell up, I can talk to somebody about them. I'm not alone. You know, Mary's inspiration for creating voices and all the good people who, like you, who've made it a reality for 20 years. Her inspiration was that nobody should ever have to be alone. None of us, that we need each other, and to isolate was a formula for disaster, that we could learn so much from each other. We had so much love and support and encouragement. And even in our moments of despair, we could see part of ourselves and help ourselves by sharing our despair and not feeling alone. So That's my story.